Mark, how are you?
Good morning, Amy.
So we can see the Biden team is already looking to cabinet appointments. They're already looking to roll back some things the president has done. But we also know that this is complicated because technically the election is not over yet. And we know that the Republicans are sort of hanging in the balance when it comes to the U.S. Senate.
That's right. A couple of things are going on. One, the Trump campaign will present lawsuits, hopefully evidence. We haven't seen any yet that will not hopefully, I'm sorry, but they're going to have to produce evidence of any improprieties that will change the direction of the campaign. And they're entitled to recounts, and that should play itself out. In the meantime, the voters of Georgia will decide the fate of the Biden agenda. There are 2 Senate races that will be up for a runoff on January 5th. Those 2 Senate seats will determine the majority. If Democrats win those 2 seats, then it's a tie, and the vice president, in this case Kamala Harris, will break the tie. If not, Republicans will control the Senate, and the Biden agenda from a progressive standpoint will be dead on arrival. No high taxes or no tax increases, no Biden care expansion of Obamacare, no packing of the Supreme Court. It'll have to be either a centrist agenda or a divided government.
Right, because we all know how that works, right? If the Senate goes Republican, the House, obviously, they lost some seats to Republicans, so they don't have the big majority that they had before. What are your thoughts on what's going on there in Georgia, Mark?
Well, I think it's interesting because a special election was needed because a senator stepped down. And so I think it's very fascinating that Georgia is even close to begin with. And that's because of the growth of the urban areas. What's happening in Georgia is happening across the country. Urban and suburban areas are turning more Democrat. In the past, Republicans had counted on both rural and suburban areas, but as Atlanta area is showing us, that's not the case anymore. And if Biden holds on in Georgia, it'll only be by a few thousand votes, which if the people of Georgia are tired of politics, they ain't seen nothing yet, because they're going to be inundated with politicians and ads for the next 2 months that will determine the fate of the Biden agenda.
Let's talk face masks, because that is something that we have heard the president-elect talk about, saying that he is going to lay the groundwork to try to encourage governors to make these face mask requirements mandatory. But, of course, that's up to the governors. Is that right?
That's right. It's up to, I don't know, he's been encouraged to try to initiate a nationwide mask mandate if his scientists tell him to. I have no idea how that's going to work, and in fact, it's probably not going to. There are already stories of Biden reaching out to governors to get their input on this. And as we know, the mask mandate is incredibly controversial no matter where you live. If you live in a red area politically, then you see this as a civil rights issue, as an individual rights issue, rather, not a civil rights, I'm sorry, an individual rights issue. If you live in a blue area, you see this as a community issue. So I don't know how a mask mandate would even work. So that's going to be an incredible challenge for Biden if he goes forward with that.
Mark, I was reading George W. Bush's statement talking about his, congratulating Joe Biden, but at the same time saying, look, President Trump has every right to make these challenges and to play this out and see how see how the cookie crumbles. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. The president has and his campaign have every right to present any evidence that shows improprieties that will impact the outcome of the election. And those 2 things are important: evidence, and will they impact the outcome of the election? Because if they don't, I don't think the courts are going to take anything up. So far, we've seen no evidence. The lawsuits that have been filed have pretty much been dismissed. It's almost as if they're filing lawsuits in search of evidence. But the president's team has a right to present those lawsuits. They have a right to ask for recounts. Probably will happen in Georgia and Wisconsin. But at some point, congressional Republicans are going to have to decide whether they're going to move on and do the business of the country as they were elected to do, or whether they're just going to keep this up. Because at some point it's going to come to an end and decisions are going to have to be made.
All right, Mark Mills, your insight is always the best. Thank you, sir, for being with us this morning.
Appreciate it, Amy. Thank you.
Well, meantime,